All right, we're live. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Rue. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. There's going to be, hopefully, we'll get some folks joining up. But as that happens, let's kick it off with the question of the day. I know you use this one often at PreSales Collective, but if folks are joining in eventually, I guess the question is, what is your favorite ice cream, Mr. Mabry?
Yeah. Yeah, so we actually do a lot of icebreakers in our team meetings now. My director of enablement, Liz, said, "Chris, your meetings are a little boring. Like, we can I just at least take over the icebreakers?" And she's totally right. And ever since doing that, it's been very helpful. So the ice cream one is funny because it's so simple but quite controversial. I would say, and if you're in the Northeast, you know of a shop called Stewart's. It's like our gas station, but more kind of place. And they have an ice cream called Mint Cookie Crumble, which is kind of like mint chocolate chip, but with like cookies instead of chocolate chips. I would say that's my favorite one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
about you?
I waver. I'm also like semi-lactose intolerant, but I'll tell you the vegan options are getting really, really good.
Yeah.
So Ben and Jerry's has some decent ones. There's a place in Seattle that's just got incredible ice cream. They're all vegan, but I don't know. If I wasn't, I'd just go back to coffee. That's my go-to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
nice. All right, so as folks are joining up on the line, drop info into the comments. Chris and I will be fielding questions, but Chris, thanks for joining me.
Of
For
course.
those of us that are joining on LinkedIn or YouTube, if you have questions for Chris, drop them in. If you don't know who this man is, he probably requires little introduction, given that the pre-sales community is, I guess, 30,000, 40,000 strong at this point. How many members do we have?
Yeah, we're at 37,000 and some change. We grow, close to 200 a week, and so my goal is quite big, but we're close to 40K.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chris is first and foremost a father, solutions engineering leader, and now the GM of the PreSales Collective. Um, Today, Chris leads the PreSales Collective organization, and he is passionate about long-term growth and sustainability of that organization. Sounds like getting from 37,000 on up. But Chris, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah. Thanks, Rue.
So I'm excited for this one. I finally got to meet you at Demo Fest in New York. That was pretty cool. See you in person. You're much taller than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like on Zoom a normal person. I'm 6'2", so I'm not outrageously tall.
Yeah.
You're also much bigger than I thought you were gonna be. Like, I don't know if it's a video, but it's like when you meet somebody in person, it's like, wow, that's Rue in real life. Like, this guy works out.
Yeah, it's so funny when you meet these people like finally virtually. I remember that from going to QBRs and other stuff like that, especially during COVID when these people
Yeah.
joined right in the middle of it. And you're, oh, wow, yeah, you're bigger or smaller or different or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I wanted to ask before we kicked off, I was just hoping you could share your story about how you found yourself in this wonderful profession that we are all in.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to unpack it. Well, it literally started with one phone call. A mentor of mine who is a regional sales director, his name's Brett Baldwin, was on a speakerphone sales call, and they were working through the sales process with a client, with a prospect. And I was overhearing their call. I was like across the office, and I was in implementation. And I overheard what they were saying. And when they hung up, I literally walked over to Brett and I said, whatever it is you did just now on that call, like, I just want to get good at it. Like, it just, whatever that was. And he literally laughed. He's like, Chris, we lost the deal. And I was like, I don't care. He just had this air of confidence and this ability to talk about value and this ability to work through this process. And I was just like hooked. So I had never really been exposed to that before. Previous to this implementation role, I kind of grew up in like network engineering. So I worked in a literal basement, literally no windows, where we designed long haul fiber optic networks and worked in a telecom company. So I was like networking engineering, but it just didn't suit my personality. So I had a mentor of mine at this company take a chance on me, and I got into an implementation role. From there, it was like the moment I learned about it, I just went crazy for it, and I broke into solution consulting with that organization, and then went to a few others and started getting into leadership.
That's awesome. What was the sales call? Do you know what the sales call they were on was when you just heard that the confidence? Was it demos or
No clue. I mean, it
yeah.
was like I think they were just trying to walk somebody through the finish line, and
Yeah.
it wasn't working. And I just they kept getting these objections, and I think what was so empowering to me was hearing the objections, clearing the objections, talking about value. I just had never heard somebody walk through that. That's when I think I realized that sales was a process, and it wasn't like it's not like a prescribed script. It's a process, and that's what
Yeah.
I fell in love with, was unpacking that process and learning it.
Yeah. Oh, the process is so important. But then it's also too the difference between enterprise sales and turnkey sales is just so different. There's
Yep.
so much more to it.
Yep.
So pre-sales collective, I wanted to talk about a few things today. First, I wanted to talk about pre-sales collective, but the goal of this series was, it's funny, I was going to name it SE to CEO, because you are effectively like a CEO of the pre-sales collective. And so I want to talk about just lessons, gathered from leadership. So we'll talk about those two things.
Okay.
I figure we could start with some of the pre-sales collective stuff. But where do you see the position of pre-sales collective kind of playing in within the greater SC community, if you will?
That's a great question, because we do a lot of things. I really anchor my vision and mission, and I would say purpose of the organization on kind of one pillar, which is potential. People's potential, team's potential, individual potential. I think it's my core belief, if no matter what you're interested in, this could be sports, it could be a hobby. If you are actively pursuing professional development in some way, if you're investing in yourself, if you're consuming high level content on a regular basis, okay, you're consistently, you're attached to that newsletter, you're consistently getting updates. If you are making meaningful relationships, and not just what's your name, where do you work, if you're building meaningful connections in your space, then you are operating at a higher potential than if you're not. Period. Flat out. And it could be anything that you're into. So I would say the most exciting thing for me about Pre-Sales Collective and playing a role in our profession is that we are uniquely designed to help people reach their potential. We're uniquely designed to influence, to bubble up and bring visibility and clarity into what good looks like. We're uniquely designed to foster connections and real meaningful relationships. So I'm jazzed about that side of Pre-Sales Collective, and I think that's where we make the biggest difference.
I love that. I think the best pre-sales folks, solutions, whatever you want to call them, are those lifelong learners. And I love what you just said about this community does allow you to reach your full potential if you want it, right? You just got to show up.
You got to show up. You have to invest. You have to take the time. I mean, I would say, out of all the solution consultants I know, out of all the teams I've ran, out of myself growing through the industry, I don't think I work with people who don't want to learn. I've always told my teams, if you wanted an easy job, this is not it.
Yeah.
We like to work hard, but don't neglect yourself with that extra 10% you could be putting in by making meaningful relationships, by consuming high quality content, and by learning, because that's going to take, even if it's that 10%, it's going to take you so much further. Through Pre-Sales Collective, I made some of the best connections I've ever made, and I still consider them friends today. I think we're uniquely designed to foster that, and that's what I see is, like, when I see people really leveraging it, getting into the conversations, really learning, that's what drives me.
Yeah. No, I love that. It is really such, before this, it was crazy. There was nothing like this existed. It was just awkward networking on LinkedIn if you
Right.
wanted to.
Right.
Now the Slack is awesome. Cool. I mean, look, the field's changing so much. What you talk to pre-sales leaders, you're on the Slack all day. What trends are you witnessing right now in the
Yeah.
field?
I mean, the trend we're seeing on social and other areas, but the trend I'm actually confirming by having one-on-ones with leaders. I'm set up with leaders every week. I have conversations with dozens of leaders across our industry. I'm doing more and more of that. We have a huge goal of talking to maybe 50 a quarter. And I'm confirming the fact that solutions consulting is expanding. A lot of thought leaders in the space are talking about this. Where I'm talking to leaders every week who are absorbing CX motions. They're absorbing sales motions.
Yeah.
They're getting asked to do marketing with blogs. I myself was part of a team that expanded well beyond demonstrations, and we got ourselves fully involved in go to market. This is the industry trend that I think is making the biggest splash at the moment. I think it's going to require a lot of upskill from our teams. We're all trying to do more with less. I think people are being careful. So I would say that's the trend to watch.
Yeah, you've got these organizations that are, especially, I mean, there's so many things going on, right? It's like product led, there's
Yep.
consumption, there's all this other stuff. So what's happening? The pre-sales leaders are then being asked to own like post sales too.
That's right. So they're getting, hey, we had a reorg earlier in the year. I've adopted I've talked to leaders who have SDR teams, CX teams, implementation teams. They're chatting in our Slack about how to build, how to design quotas. I talked to one leader. I don't know if this is the biggest trend. I talked to one leader who has open positions for quota carrying SEs.
Wow.
Which is totally different than the industry I joined.
Yeah.
I'm not against it because I mean, I was kind of an SE who always wanted to be a little in charge of my destiny.
Yeah.
But I'm just hearing enough of it to where I think it needs to be discussed. Leaders are looking to be empowered. Leaders are looking for other connections of people who are getting the same tasks. So that's common too. It's, hey, I just adopted this team. Who else is doing this? How did it work for you? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm kind of seeing.
Yeah, it's different to manage a post sales, let alone SDR or quota carrying folks. Like, totally it's not the pre-sales I entered.
Right.
I have talked to some more leaders that have done it, but yeah, it's going to be not only a skill switch, but a mentality shift. I mean, when you were an SC, would you have felt comfortable with a quota early on because you had that, own your own destiny, or no?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
There's no way. I mean, when I just, broke into SE land, it was important that I knew Unix, and it was important that I could go out and install and fix problems.
Yeah.
That side of the house, I didn't like as much. But I would not have been comfortable. Now I would be.
Yeah.
But being in charge of revenue and sales, etc., gives me a lot of experience in that. But it's a shift.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark just put a great comment in the chat. If you want to bubble that one up.
Yeah, we can post it here. Let's see.
Yeah.
Mark said, I've seen SE job descriptions that read line for line exactly as an account executive. Didn't even mention demos. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, Mark, you're onto something. It's like, yeah, it implies implementation, just like you said. It implies conversion, right? It implies the ownership of revenue. I've always kind of drew a line between sales and ownership of revenue and solutions ownership of solution.
Yeah.
This really blends that together. So it's something to be on the look for.
This is great. I'm loving this stuff coming in here. Matthew over here got a good comment. Just fascinated by the trend of the SD quotas, especially as quota carrier.
Oh, myself. Matt, I didn't know you had a quota. Matt's doing great things. I definitely love connecting with Matt. I didn't know that. I'll have to have a conversation with you about that.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've seen it at a couple other companies too, where it's just SEs have that quota. And it's very interesting too, because now one SE leader I was talking to, their SEs are being competed for by AEs because the SE has their number. Let's say it's $1 million. And if you've got 5 reps you're supporting, you're going to go to the one that's most likely to help you get to your number. So
Yep.
now it's almost like the AEs are dating the SE, like, hey, work on my deal because it's the most important. It's going to help you get to number. It's like, oh, that would be a very interesting dynamic to see flipped, right?
I mean, that opens up the whole conversation of like President's Club, everything, right? And then now it's like, yeah, Sean, he carried a number. Connor made a great point. On pro sales activities, I definitely see a lot of room. That's the thing, is I think a lot of us who have been in the space, we know we can make an influence there. And in some ways we kind of know we would do a better job, but we just haven't done it.
Yeah.
And maybe the market is forcing our hand. Maybe, we're realizing that, hey, if we go make an impact over there, we can make a better impression and influence on the business. Just a lot there.
This is awesome. Keep the comments coming. We'll do a quick break. For those that are just joining up, I've got Chris Mabry, GM of the PreSales Collective. Super pumped about this. I was joking. We've got Tom Banton, I joke, was Professor Presales. I feel like, you're the president of presales at this point. So we'll play around with that. Keep comments coming in. If you got questions for Chris, drop them in as well, and we'll field that stuff. Moving right along. Man, Chris, how many months have you been at this now?
5.5 months. Jeez. I could almost tell you how many days.
What's your favorite part?
Yeah, my favorite part about PreSales Collective is the potential, the connection, and the learning. I think that just as I unpacked before, if people are doing that kind of 3-step process, they're in a much better situation. And I think that we're uniquely designed to provide it. That's my favorite part.
Love that. Yeah, just this idea to be able to foster that learning and the potential of folks. I want to switch gears a little bit. And you said something about pre-sales folks being learners. And I actually do some studies on this. Because one of the workshops I do is around values and behaviors. And it's fascinating. SEs are typically, the number one value that I see is a value of valuing learning and education. Number 2 is interesting. It's economic, but that doesn't necessarily mean money. That means usually like results and money. Learning is very high up though. I would be curious, what drives Chris Mabry more than money?
Oh man, with the caveat that my children and family are absolutely number one. Obviously, I love spending time with my kids. It's honestly, it's people. Like, people mean, when you step back, it's like, what else do we have? People are everything. And I think that it's almost rare, but extremely important when you meet somebody that you feel a genuine connection with, like an actual connection with. Like when I met you, it was pretty obvious right away that we were on the same path, right? It was just very easy. I think that is worth everything, because you can go through, if you build and own teams, you know this, but you can do anything with the right people. And I think personal life, professional life, maybe they blend more than that, but I think that's my favorite part of this world.
Yeah. No, you're right. At the end of the day, you have like the relationships with great people.
Yeah.
Matthew, love this. The real questions. Yeah, we'll talk about the touchy-feelies next time we get together for a demo fest. Let's see. These comments in the chat are awesome here. Got one from Heather just talking about quotas scare me. I definitely get that. They would have scared me, especially as a more junior SC. And then you're working with typically reps that maybe are a little bit junior as well. So that could be interesting here.
Yeah. And on that point on negotiation and pricing, that's always scary at first. I think pricing is always weird to me because you just don't know a lot of the time. But if you do the right amount of competitive intelligence, if you really understand the market, pricing just speaks to you. You know exactly where you should be. Without it, it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great here, Heather. It's something where these are skills that probably don't come in early in your SE career. It just takes some more experience to be more comfortable there. Let's see here. So sticking with the personal theme, I talk to SE leaders and I hear all sorts of stuff like what's most important. And achievement and hitting the number is definitely top of mind because let's be honest, it's really hard to be motivated when you're never hitting number each year. But besides that, what are you thinking about beyond achievement number? Like what's going on in the back of your mind as a leader?
Yeah, organizational outcome, revenue, all that is obviously a key role, a key part of my role. But here's my test: if you're in a social situation and somebody asks you where you work, are you proud to say where you work? Are you excited to talk to them about what you do? That's my litmus test on team. So if the answer to that question at a happy hour, at a dinner party, whatever it might be, if you're proud to talk about what you do at work and where you work, then that means you have a good team. So I'm consistently thinking about, does that moment make sense to my team? Does it are the people on a clear path to progression in their career? Is it understandable? Is it measurable? So I'm highly focused on providing the path and allowing that to grow.
Wow. As you said that hit me because I do remember making the move from SE to AE and thinking like, you tell people you're in sales and immediately it's like, oh, all right. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I didn't like have the proud appreciation for sales like I now do. Now I'm so pumped when I tell people I'm in sales. I tell people I'm in sales, or I tell people, yeah, I teach engineers how to sell. They're like, that's awesome. So I'm very passionate about it. But yeah, if you don't have that passion, that's so hard for the team. How do you create a high performing team without that?
Exactly. And just as Mark commented, it's evangelists, right? You have to foster the environment. You have to allow people to learn. You have to, there's so much to it. It's so much more than just management. Management, leadership are totally different things. ICs can lead, managers aren't necessarily leaders. But if you're really in charge of and responsible for the success of your team and organization, that comes first.
That's so good. I like that you just said that. Managing and leading are completely different. Love this stuff, Mark. Keep this stuff coming. Are you excited about your work? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so big. Just leadership and being a leader is just so important in this, especially if you're in sales. You've got to guide folks.
Yep.
Cool. Keep this stuff coming. For those, again, joining up late, we've got Chris Mabry on, GM of the PreSales Collective. Chris, we're going to get into some stuff that I've got an audience here that are a lot of folks that are newer to the pre-sales profession or solutions profession. So looking back, I guess before I ask this question, can you run through that progression again? You started off in implementation, but then you went into sales engineering, and then just talk about that, the transition from individual contributor to manager and then to pre-sales collective, because I want to ask the question on what advice would you give your younger self? But I don't want to ask that for just one thing. I would want to ask that at each level that you've been through.
Yeah. Well, the journey is much longer than that one, because I was at a startup when I was 17 years old. I was real quick in technology. It all came pretty easy. And I went to a startup and I was in customer service. And then I grew through technical support, technical support 1, 2, senior, all that. And then I graduated into engineering. And one of my number one, when I take a look in the review mirror on that, I actually had an opportunity to go into sales because they thought my personality would be fit and I do the tech really well.
Yeah.
And if I were to go back to my younger self, what I would say is don't be afraid of sales. Just to your point, which is I almost felt that it would be right, but I was like, no. I'm not a salesperson. And if I'm glad I did all the really hardcore technical, speeds and feeds of things, because it did influence my career moving forward greatly. Even in leadership, understanding how products work and how everything functions is super important. But that's what I would tell myself then. And when I left that organization is when I went into an implementation role. And it was really kind of like a jump the shark moment for me. I was getting out of pure technical work and I was talking to customers and prospects. And it was totally different. And then I started leaning into that, and I started leaning into my skills and learning that sales was a process and not a prescription, that's when it really started to click. I was like, that's me. I can't be the guy in the basement anymore.
Yeah. This is awesome. KJ chiming in. I love this. KJ, your story is fantastic as well. Chris. Yeah, don't be afraid of sales.
It's fine.
Oh, it's so good. What about, so how many folks were you leading? You go from leading a team of probably a few to 40,000.
Yeah. I mean, I went from leading teams of, 6, 7, 8, 10 at times, of anywhere between new, associate programs to strategic teams, designing strategic teams and councils. PreSales Collective is a team of 6 full-time, but like you said, it's not black and white that way. It's just very much more ambiguous. There's a lot of people who put a lot of heart and soul into this thing. There's a lot of relationships. So it's a lot more of that, which I love. I really like it.
Love this. Marcos, can't be the guy in the basement. Great soundbite. Yeah, I love that one too. It's like, Mark, it reminds me of Office Space with Milton.
100%.
Nice. Yeah. What advice would you give your younger self? Don't be afraid of sales. So good. What's the best advice you've got when it comes to sales engineering?
Well, I would say this. SEs know more about product than sales, and more about sales than product. And I'll say that again. So SEs know more about product than sales, and more about sales than product. That line is probably the best piece of advice I had received and crafted, because it really helped us design our flywheel within an organization to influence all sides.
That is so true and so simple.
Yeah, when you're working with the CTO, they know more about product than you, but you certainly know a lot more about product than the sales team does. You are an influential member in the market. So leverage that and lean on that. And vice versa.
Oh my, there's so much more to this though, because I'll tell you, product usually does not respect salespeople. And a lot of salespeople don't respect true hardcore product people.
Yeah.
But I did notice when I was in sales engineering, like product wanted to hear everything from me. They wouldn't want to go to an AE and talk, but they wanted to talk to me and SE.
Yep. And it was the first piece of what is now, I think, evident in the expansion we're seeing in solution consulting. Mm-hmm. But that was the first piece of like expansion beyond being seen as a tool in the business. So instead of being seen as a tool you can leverage, you're going to plug yourself into everywhere. You're going to go through marketing. You're going to expand into revenue. You're going to expand into forecasting. You're going to expand all over the place, because I know my SE team can probably forecast just as well, if not better, when it comes to technical fit, technical win, are we solving a problem, than their sales counterparts can.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a statement that leads into the expansion of our influence through the organization.
Yeah, that's huge. Have you seen, you say you talk to leaders a lot. I'm curious if you've got any data points on this or if it hasn't come up. Are ratios changing positively or negative between AEs and SEs?
It all depends on your motion. The only common ground I have on ratios is you could actually go from ACV back and say you can probably gauge ratios just on that, but I would say enterprise teams versus B2B SaaS. If you're just talk to a leader at Cisco, they're not a B2B SaaS organization in his specialty. They do long-term large contracts. That's very, very still a one-to-one ratio as it should be. So I'm seeing the ratios. I haven't noticed a trend of expansion there, but I've noticed that it's very dependent on your product set.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely. I've been noticing the same thing, but I'm curious. Yeah, if we're seeing more of it, because there's more of a need for the solutions folks, but there's also less of it with product led and stuff like that. Cyber is down at like a 1-to-1, but I hate the ratio model anyway.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. Let's see what else we got here. We got keep dropping stuff in the chat. This is good stuff. Let's see. Mark's saying the best SE teams plug them into product through AHA. I've seen AHA and ideation platforms to drive innovation. Love that. Let's see here. Similar experience here. KJ's on. Yeah, KJ with the high hands up. All right. So I got some more questions I wanted to ask. This is a question I ask all pre-sales leaders. So this is the Alpha Pre-Sales question.
Okay.
And
trademarked.
Yeah. And look, Alpha Pre-Sales is all about leadership and being truly. Leadership is becoming who you are. All leaders are not the same. In fact, they're all completely different. But I always am looking and trying to diagnose like what makes excellent solutions consultants, and there's no one answer for it.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't need you to name a person. I just want you to think of this person in your head, whoever comes to mind. All right.
Okay.
And then I'll ask you a question.
All right.
So the question to start with to get this person in your head is, who is the best SE you have ever seen? You have someone up here?
Yep.
Okay. What did that person do that was exceptional?
I would say he was now I have two best SEs in my head.
Yeah, hit me with both of them. Yeah.
So I would say, and they're great in different areas. I would say, but actually, if I take a step back and I look at both individuals in my mind, I think they are the do whatever it takes kind of people. The best SEs in my mind are the ones who, they don't pride themselves on saying no. There's a lot of that going on where people pride themselves on rejecting. I don't think SEs should work on everything, but I don't think we should pride ourselves on what we don't do. And those SEs were those who built relationships and were really able to work in the gray area much better than others. And that's what a lot of leadership is too. You don't really have much direction. You don't have a lot of clarity. You work from an objective or a desired outcome, and you go backwards, right? And so when some of these great SEs work on a desired outcome of long-term success with a partner, solving a problem to get the next contract, maybe doing something post-sales that isn't in their job description, but they know they could add value. To me, that's the kind of person I was, and I think those are the best kind.
I love that. Do whatever it takes. It sounds like the SE is truly a partner to the sales rep. Yeah.
and to everyone, they they're willing to focus on the business outcome of their role, and it could be in events, it could be in it could just it's a broad role, and if you apply yourself correctly, you can influence the entire business, and then you can grow into a business ownership position if that's your goal. But those are some of the best SEs I've worked with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, being comfortable in the gray area, being sort of comfortable with uncomfortable in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Folks on the line, I've seen some stuff drop in here. What do you think makes the best SEs? We got one here. The best SEs are constantly curious to understand the why and work tirelessly to solve the business challenge. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mark said, let's see. I've seen told the joke at the beginning of a meeting. The purpose was to gauge laughter and decide if this demo would be a very formal or not based on. Oh, that is great. Yeah, Mark, cool comment here, right? Crack a joke in the beginning of the meeting, figure out what the mood of the room is, and then figure out how you kind of present yourself there. I love that.
You could work backwards and do some statistics on percentage of close one ratio on laughter. Yeah.
I was actually looking at something recently. They said the average child, I think, laughs 400 times a day. Guess what the average adult laughs? It's 15 times or something.
Yeah.
And I was that seems more than even I would have expected. But still, if kids are laughing 400, we should be laughing more.
Yeah, that's true. They also cry more, so maybe we should do that too.
Oh, good. Let's see here. Oh yeah, KJ says, Mark, I love that. Did that SE perform on stage in prior life? It's a good question. There are a lot of former performers, I feel like, in the SE ranks for sure.
Yeah.
Chris, so we're going to do a little wrap up here.
Okay.
I wanted to do just figure out, how can folks get more of Chris Mabry in their life? Is it Slack? Is it tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, great question. It's LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's the only social I pay attention to. It's where I'm at. It's where you'll see a lot of updates on our programming. So connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then that follows. Of course, I'm active in the PSC Slack channels and everywhere else you'll see us, and events and in person and virtual. But that's probably the best route.
Yeah. Any big events or anything like that going on with PreSales Collective that folks should be aware of?
Yeah, we have. Oh man, I'm glad you asked this, because we have an exciting program designed for 2024. And a lot of it is like chicken before the egg. How do we announce what's going on with maybe not completing it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Q1's done and beyond, but we have a really exciting PSC summit coming. So we haven't announced or linked up the sign up page yet, but it's a 5-session keynote virtual summit available to all, that I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
We're going to cover things that go beyond, demo and presentation and tactical skills. We're covering stuff like active listening, vulnerability, stuff that people can really grow with. My goal moving forward with all of our content is to create a very high level of content that empowers your potential. So you're going to see a lot of cool stuff coming through PreSales Collective that way. We do have a bit of a roadshow coming up. Atlanta, Austin, Denver, New York, San Francisco. You'll see us on the road. You'll see us doing in-person events. So just, plug into a LinkedIn, connect with me, connect with us in Slack, and you'll get all the updates.
Yeah. Love that. Man, there's so much going on, and thanks for sharing. I didn't want to spoil anything that needs a special PreSales Collective announcement, but
sure, no,
that sounds awesome about the summit. Well, cool. This has been awesome takeaways. I've certainly learned plenty here. I love the SEs know more about sales than product and more about product than sales. I think great SEs do whatever it takes. Don't be no people all the time. And yeah, plenty other just good lessons here. Any final comments or anything else that folks should know moving forward, or are we good to break here?
No, I mean, thank you for the time, Rue. Like, I really appreciate all the stuff you're putting out in the world. I follow it. I'm paying attention to it. I'm watching the videos. I think you're the first person to like blend what looks like sports plays with solution consulting on a whiteboard, which looks really fun to me.
I like that.
My biggest takeaway is this: like, don't neglect all the hard work you put in. You know, routinely invest in yourself and consuming high quality content, building meaningful relationships and connections within our space and elsewhere, focusing on it professional development, and do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think the biggest takeaway I have is I'm a consistent learner. I read all the time. Is just give yourself that extra 10%. There's plenty of places for it to live. You can work with Rue. You can work with anybody. You can go through PreSales Collective. You can sign up for a newsletter somewhere. Just do something that helps you move the needle.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to reach out and connect with others, especially if there's some common ground. You'll never regret it.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of sales. It's a great.
Don't be afraid of sales. Right? Be proud of where you work.
Awesome. Chris Mabry, GM PreSales Collective. Thank you, Chris, for being on here. And we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.